Things have now gone from bad to worse in an extremely quick fashion for this Philadelphia 76ers team. They have now dropped to 2-11 following the frustrating loss at the hands of the Miami Heat, and Tyrese Maxey has called out Joel Embiid in a team meeting behind closed doors following the game. I want to break down why every single member of this Philadelphia 76ers organization needs to look themselves in the mirror, what we do know about this team meeting, and whether this is rock bottom of this Sixers season or the breaking point of a Sixers era. So to set the tone a little bit, that yesterday the Sixers did play the Miami Heat. They were up 19 points in the second quarter and then proceeded to absolutely fall apart. Joel Embiid was listed as doubtful leading up to the game, ended up giving it a go, did play, and did not look like himself whatsoever. That this team had no answers for the Heat in the second half, were unable to generate any sort of offensive option, and what has become incredibly clear on the season is there was not the necessary level of competitiveness or effort level from the Sixers team. Then following the game, we start to get a report from Kai Carlin, who was down there in Miami, tweeting out about an hour after the game that Nick Nurse has not yet met with the media. Now, what that means is a couple different things. So there was obviously something going on behind the scenes now, and we did have that question answered, is that there was a team meeting here. And Kai tweeting that Nick Nurse has come out and started the media session by apologizing for being late and said the team had a, quote, little meeting. He won't get into the specifics of the meeting. And to add to that a little bit, we do have this over here from Sixers Galaxy and originally Gina Mazel, who said, quote, Nurse called the meeting a player and coach driven, asked if he felt the message was received, and he said players were attentive, but you never fully know until the next game or practice. Now, to set the tone for a little bit for how this goes down here, I have done the in-arena media side of things for while the Sixers are or when the Sixers were home at the Wells Fargo Arena there, and how that typically goes is a quick process before the coach hops on the stands. No more than 10 to 15 minutes before they face the media, answer questions, and they are the first one to speak there. The fact that this took a full hour is a quite extended period of time here and means that there was plenty said. Now, luckily, we did get a report from Shams Charania today that began to indicate a couple things that went down, and it is nothing great here. To start out with, the most notable headline that is taking news from this is that Tyrese Maxey reportedly called out Joel Embiid for always being late, per Shams Charania, and the quote from the article saying, quote, in the meeting, Maxey challenged Embiid to be on time to team activities, calling out the former league MVP about being late, quote, for everything, and how it impacts the locker room from other players to the coaching staff, sources briefed on the meeting told ESPN. So a couple thoughts here. For starters, it is flat out embarrassing that 24-year-old Tyrese Maxey is the biggest adult in the entire organization. It also, I love that he is taking these steps, that he is forward facing, taking those steps into a leadership role, which the Sixers franchise absolutely needs him to know. I also think Tyrese Maxey is the right balance of personality, obviously the skill level that he possesses, and that relationship with Joel Embiid, that this might be something that does get through him. We've seen in countless times that Joel Embiid may be in one ear, out the other, where the message is not received. I do think it might come off a little bit different when coming from Tyrese Maxey. Now, to dive into a little bit more of specifics of the article, I want to continue that part saying that Maxey challenged Embiid to be on time to team activities, calling out the 2023 league MVP for being late, quote, for everything, and how it impacts the locker room from other players to the coaching staff, sources briefed on the meeting told ESPN. Maxey and Embiid have a close friendship and a history of holding each other accountable, according to those around the team. Quote, Tyrese loves the big fella, but this is the elephant in the room, a person involved in the meeting. Now, to get to this point here, I do want to set the stage and kind of talk about how we got here. Do not take this as an excuse for Joel Embiid whatsoever, because trust me, I will be coming down here at the other side of things. But how we got to this point is Joel Embiid has been the voice of stability for this Sixers franchise, that he has outlived just about everyone around him. We're talking about 3 different general managers, including one that was talking shit about him on a burner account on Twitter. We're talking about him having 3 separate coaches at this point in time, over 150 different teammates, that he's seen multiple stars force their way out requesting trades, from Ben Simmons to James Harden. We obviously had the Jimmy Butler period of time. There's been so much change around this guy, and there really has not been that stability for him to lean on. And what happens when that is the case is things begin to slide. That is one thing to hold a guy accountable from start to finish when you have that culture, when you're adding a young talent to a team that already has that established. Joel Embiid has been the guy that has established this. And I do know firsthand this is not a new thing this year. This has been something that Joel Embiid has dealt with or, brought to the table in years past, and has been frustrating for a lot of different people. Now, it's another story when you're doing that, when you were playing like the league MVP, averaging 35 points per game, dominating on a night-to-night basis, that you can overlook him being 15 minutes late to a shoot-around or whatever the case may be. Different story when this team is sitting at 2-11 and underwhelming by every single definition of what could be looked at for this point. So for Joel Embiid, you have to wake up right now. I love that Tyrese Maxey called this out directly to her face, and I still will look at it as a positive that they are attempting to get this thing back on track. But never a great sign when these things are popping out, especially when there is 84% of the season still remaining at this point in time. Now, to add a little bit more depth here, this is frankly the most damning part of this entire thing to me, and not something that I've seen get enough attention. So to call out this part of the report here, the article from Shams continues to say, players told 76ers coach Nick Nurse they want to be coached harder, and coaches in turn said they want players to practice with more purpose and attention to detail. Embiid accepted the messages sent in the meeting, sources said, but he stated that he is sometimes confused about what the 76ers are attempting to execute on the court. Embiid, who was listed as doubtful for most of Monday due to an illness, was not seen by most teammates and coaches throughout the day before appearing for warm-ups and playing in the game. Maxey is highly regarded as a young leader by many in the organization, and those around the team were not surprised that he spoke up on Monday. He has been out since November 7th with a strained right hamstring, but sources said that he's expected to return this week, either Wednesday in Memphis or Friday at home against the Brooklyn Nets. So great news about Maxey returning to this team, but the part that I do want to make explicitly clear here are these first two paragraphs saying, players told 76ers coach Nick Nurse they want to be coached harder, and the coaches in turn they want players to practice with more purpose and attention to detail. Embiid accepted the messages sent in the meeting, sources said, but he stated that he is sometimes confused about what the 76ers are attempting to execute on the court. So for Nick Nurse here, we need to have the Nick Nurse conversation. Because yes, you've been dealt about as bad of a hand as possible for any sort of head coach out here. That you've had injuries from all three of your top stars. Joel Embiid, who knows what the situation is, that there's been all this lingering nonsense heading into the season. But the reality is, even with that occurring, there's too much talent on this roster for this team to be 2-11, and they've played far too poorly of basketball, or just not having any outlook for what their success is with the bodies that have been on the floor. That is an indictment on Nick Nurse. I understand it is not easy, but that is part of the reason that you are this championship winning head coach. It is your job to elevate and win games when you shouldn't. That is part of what comes with the territory, and I do think there should be some more criticism to it. Now, we can put this directly on Joel Embiid, and some blame absolutely deserves that you can't be complaining about not knowing what to do in the offense when you have not been there for weeks upon months at a time as this team has started to build something. It's very clear that a team looks night and day different when Joel Embiid is there and when Joel Embiid isn't, and obviously they have to play a different way for that side of things. I'm also incredibly frustrated from a franchise standpoint that it's so evident that there's still plenty they are not saying. We still have not had concrete answers for what is the situation with Joel Embiid. And to kind of reflect on a little bit of things, shout out to my guy Dave Early of Liberty Ballers, who kind of laid things out here. So he says, so to recap, people in the Sixers organization believe Embiid, quote, forced himself to play through injuries due to the scrutiny he received about ducking Jokic, unpredictably get hurt, needs meniscus surgery, tries an off-the-backboard dunk to himself in the round one of the playoffs, plays in the Olympics, can't start the season, now he's late for everything, and Maxey hates it. Next Tuesday in Sixersville. So where the gaps are on this, or what exactly is up with the knee, and I'm still incredibly frustrated that they don't just put that out there. I know Joel Embiid is sensitive about his medical information, that he does not want that floating out there more than it is necessary, but guess what, big fella? That comes with the territory when you're an NBA basketball player, particularly one with as extensive of injury history as the case. I guarantee a lot of the tone of the things would be vastly different if there was just a concrete statement of Joel Embiid aggravated his knee injury this summer at the Olympics. He's not quite 100% ready. We're going to make sure he is at his best when he does step on the court. If you had just said that rather than this plan or this ramp-up process or whatever other buzzwords you want to use for make excuses for him not being on the court, things won't have gone easier. Now, with that being said, that doesn't change the fact that this team is 2-11 and their backs are against the wall this early in the season. This team desperately needs to rip off a winning streak, and it is far too worrisome or far too early to have this worrisome of an outlook come into the season. And what is especially frustrating for me without this outlook is so much of the concept behind this new look roster of bringing in Paul George, of seeing the development of Tyrese Maxey, of Jared McCain being a dude on this team moving forward, the Caleb Martins of the world, you name it, that this roster has brought in. The idea of that is that there is not as much strain on Joel Embiid through the regular season, that you do have a higher chance of him making it through the extensive regular season healthy and giving yourself a true playoff chance. Well, rip that up and throw it out the window because they need to win at an incredible rate moving forward here. It's too early for me to fully be waving the white flag because I do think we have yet to see this true Sixers team on the floor. We have not seen Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George share the floor together in the same game just yet. And that's why I kind of have my reservations for fully getting off the train here. But with that said, you plenty of reason if you want to view things that way. It has been absolutely brutal to start this season. I will I guess give a little bit of credit for them trying to get things back on track, but it's flat out embarrassing that this is the situation they find them in, that they're at this necessary of a stage to start winning games this soon in the season. And when you look around the league, yes, the Eastern Conference is bad. Yes, there's still only a handful of games out of a playoff spot, but other teams are going to turn things around too. The Milwaukee Bucks, as bad as they've looked, that's not going to be forever. The New York Knicks have started to put things together. The Cleveland Cavaliers look like they will never lose a game ever again. The Brooklyn Nets are playing above their heads. There are teams playing good basketball, and the Sixers are not one of them. So we will see how things age from here. Is this the turning point of the season? Is this something that can, get Joel Embiid up to speed, get him on the right place mentally? I just firmly believe that there is something going on with him, that we are not privy to that information, whether it is physical, whether it's mental, whether it's something personal. This is not the version of Joel Embiid that the Sixers need for the season, and frankly, one that they're going to have some pretty tough conversations about if this is how the rest of the season goes. For the time being, hopefully, we can have a look at this team playing some real deal basketball. I am hopeful that Tyrese Maxey, the infectious energy that he plays with, the incredible basketball ability that he possesses, him returning to the floor, takes some strain off the likes of Joel Embiid and Paul George, that we're able to finally see what this looks like fully constructed, because that has not been the case yet. But I'd be lying to you if I was optimistic right now. It is as bleak as I can remember during the Joel Embiid era as far as winning and having a successful season. And I truly thought the floor of the Sixers team was far higher than the version that we have seen on the floor thus far. Obviously, it is still early on in the year, but this is something they have to get right just now. So we'll see how things shake out from here. As Nick Nurse said himself, that it does depend on seeing them on the floor to see if the message really hit home. We can only hope that is the case, and they will be back in action tomorrow against the Memphis Grizzlies. So, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm getting exhausted with this Sixers team and incredibly frustrated that this is the spot we find them in. But the reality is, the rest of these 69 games on the season are going to be played one way or another. So the only thing they can do is try and get better from here. Let me know what you guys think below. Let it air out in the comments. I hear all the frustration. I'm with you to the fullest extent here. Make sure you're dropping a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And hopefully I'm talking in a little bit better circumstances the next time I'm on the bike. Peace.